Thank you all for coming along. So I'm Gavin Dutch. I'm the Managing Director of an Edinburgh-based app development company called Kotikan. Just to give you a little bit of a background on what we do, we are an app development consultancy. There's 3 apps here that are kind of highlights of our successes last year. First one is an app called Skyscanner for an Edinburgh-based flight search company, which just last week went through 7 million downloads and is working out quite well for them. The second app is an app we built for the Scottish Qualification Authority to help students plan their revision for their exams. They enter the exams they're sitting, they enter how important those exams are to them, enter their free time, and it generates a complete timetable for them right the way up to the day they sit their exams. I'm a little bit worried we've killed all that procrastination of creating revision timetables. And the last app here is an app for an organisation called Quality Meat Scotland that I never knew existed, but it's to help people cook the perfect steaks and roasts with Scottish beef, lamb and pork. And it's quite a nice little app to help those of us who are less culinarily inclined like myself. So, I first gave this presentation earlier in the year with Alan Gibson, who's the head of marketing at the Edinburgh Fringe, and we were doing it as a double act. So I'm going to try and fill in the important sides from his part, but if I have a couple of biases that I might tell you about as we go along. So the Fringe in Edinburgh, I'm sure you've all heard of, is the largest arts festival in the world. And the Fringe itself is a charity, which I didn't realise when we first got involved. And their job is not so much to put on this huge event, but to help the performers put on their events within the Fringe. And so a lot of it is about supporting the performers and then attendees to the Fringe to help them discover all the performances going on. But in 2011, just to give you an illustration of the scale, 258 venues, 20,000 performers, 40,000 performances, 2,500 different shows, and 1.9 million tickets sold for the Fringe. So it's a phenomenal event, and quite scary when you live in Edinburgh over that time. So why were they looking to invest in mobile in the first place? Well, if you've been down to the Fringe, you might recognise the programme that they have of all the events. It's like a phone book. This is, I think, maybe about 100 copies of it. They print 4,000 copies of it, distribute it all around Scotland, all around the UK, and it costs them a fortune. There's a huge environmental impact. There's a lot of paper there. There's lorries taking it down to London. But 68% of all attendees to the Fringe use it as their main source of information. So mobile seemed like a good choice to help users navigate their way around the Fringe. It's very much dependent on location. You've got those 300 venues that users want to move between. So in 2009, we started working with a marketing organisation in Edinburgh called Festivals Edinburgh, who sit across all of Edinburgh's festivals, to create an app to help attendees to the festivals navigate their experience. It cost £1.69 and we received 1,600 downloads. Now, the development that went into that was much higher than the £1,600 that it made. So the development costs were not really covered by our first endeavour in 2009. We built this as a hybrid application, so it was a combination of website and mobile app, where the fact that it was a website was hidden, and we took a few learnings from that on to 2010. So 2010, the Fringe recognised that they had a stronger brand than this other festival's marketing organisation and really wanted to get something that their audience were interested in. It was free to download, and then they had some additional features in there that allowed users to get access to the half-price hut, which is daily half-price tickets at the Fringe. And then also they could add, users could add favourite shows and favourites into their calendar, so they could plan their whole festival experience. So the numbers were a little bit more impressive that year. Still on the iPhone only, 22,000 downloads and nearly 400,000 sessions. So one thing that this helped us learn was that those who did download the app were actually using it. They were coming back and using it again and again. The average number of uses is high. So 2011, the Fringe were lucky enough to receive sponsorship from Virgin Money and Arts and Business in Scotland to allow them to invest in growing the apps and on the success of the previous year. So to reach a wider audience, Android was a platform that they looked at. And then they also wanted to look at ticket purchase. Now, why would they want to do ticket purchase? Now, this is where my opinion and the Fringe differ. I hate queuing, and there is huge queues every summer outside the Fringe box offices, and I don't really want to have to sit through that to go and pick up my ticket. But also for the Fringe, it was a chance of seeing if there was new revenue available through purchase, and just increasing the user's ability to attend the festival. So just getting into some of the how we did this, the techie bit. Don't worry, there's no code demos. I hung up my coding shoes a while ago. So looking at the platform, why did we go for a native application and not a mobile web application? In Edinburgh, with an extra 2 million people in the city in August, the cell phone networks grind to a halt. Trying to download your emails in Edinburgh off Wi-Fi is not a lot of fun. We had to do something that could be completely contained on the device, and we were looking for a responsive experience that could handle this database of 40,000 different Fringe performances. So in the first place, we said it has to be native. Our first effort in 2009 of a hybrid application, it was very difficult to use some parts of the application because of the limitations of connectivity. So the web just wasn't the right route for us. And then Android, it came down to numbers. We'd love to be able to do it for all platforms so that everyone who has a smartphone can access the content. But realistically, it's going to cost the same again or equivalent every time you develop it for a new platform. So we had to look at where the biggest numbers were, and that at this time and the time in 2011 was the Android platform. So just a couple of the challenges that are unique to the Fringe. The Fringe program continually evolves. If you want to put on a show at the Fringe, you can turn up the day before in August and say, I want to put a show on, and they have to get it out through their digital media. So that means the application had to automatically update itself quietly in the background while users were using it. And we wanted to create a positive user journey that people go to the Fringe on holiday. They're expecting an experience that's rewarding. So we really wanted to extend that and to make sure that everyone enjoyed their experience of the app as well as the Fringe. And the Fringe is a complicated mix of organisations. There are many different box offices, there are many different venues, there is not one system that runs it all. So we had to work out a way that we could connect with some of the box offices to sell tickets, because we couldn't sell them for all box offices. It gave us a limitation as well. It would be nice if we could have a mobile solution where you present the ticket on the phone and you can turn up and the stewards at the venues can recognise that that's a ticket. But unfortunately the technology isn't there for all the venues. So we had to go for a hybrid approach where you could buy the tickets on the app and then collect them from your nearest collection point. And then one of the biggest challenges through all of this was transaction security. We were going to be dealing with people's credit card numbers. And I'll mention it again in a little bit, but not only dealing with people's credit card numbers, working with a sponsor partner who was a bank who are very protective of their brand. I've never known anyone like Virgin who will demand that everything is perfect. And we had an additional challenge, and the funding came quite late, so we had 2 months to develop the Android application and get ticket purchase enabled for the iPhone and Android. So just a little bit more about how we started this. I think the other speakers have all mentioned this. In mobile phone applications, design and user experience is critical, and it's got to make sense for how people use their phone. They don't want to be entering text on the phone. It's too fiddly, and we wanted to optimize that experience. We didn't need shopping baskets because we said, well, we think that most people who are going to be using this are actually buying tickets for something that they're going to see immediately. It's not the case that they want to build up, well, some of them did want to build up their entire booking catalogue for their Fringe experience, but we said, well, let's keep it a little bit simpler. Let's avoid shopping baskets and allow them only to buy one show's tickets at a time. I mentioned earlier about the limited collection points, so we had to make sure that users could easily find those collection points once they made the purchase. So we included a map. As soon as the transaction's made, a map that shows you where to go and pick that up. And just to go back to a couple of reasons why this was so important, there's a couple of stats that came out towards the end of last year. There's 66% of mobile users would not go back to a brand if they had a frustrating mobile experience. And the level of frustration from transactions failing on mobile was equivalent to being stuck in traffic for hours. So it's quite a dangerous thing to upset people that much by making a few mistakes in the whole process. So what were we aiming for? Well, we wanted to create a situation where users could buy their tickets in one tap. That was it. That's all they needed to do, say, I want that to see that show, and off you go, the Amazon experience. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot of information that we need up front. We want to store people's credit cards so they don't have to enter them again. We need the billing information. So this is the map of all the screens that a user has to go through when they first set this up. It seems quite a lot, but I've got a little movie coming up that gets through it in about a minute. But you can see there's a lot going on, but it's quite a nice way of illustrating how it all fits together through these tap-through maps. So transaction processing, we were lucky to work with the Fringe main box office supplier, so we could link directly into their system. Comes with a few challenges. Every box office works in a different way, but we had to make sure that if someone was using, someone had made a transaction on their device, that if something went wrong with that transaction, if the connection died, we could find that transaction again and make sure that people got their tickets. There's nothing worse than buying a ticket and not being able to go and see the show because the O2 network went down. And then coming back to security considerations, again, some of you, if you work in e-commerce, might be familiar with the payment card industry compliance. It's a set of specifications that you must conform to if you process credit card transactions. It doesn't exist on mobile. They haven't yet defined how people should accept payments on mobile. There are no best practice guidelines on security, so we had to come up with it ourselves. And like I mentioned before, we also had to satisfy Virgin Money's requirements that nothing would go wrong when this happened. So we tried to test as much of this critical functionality as early as possible. It made for a very interesting fringe for myself and my colleagues as we were all buying many more tickets than we ever thought we would use at the Fringe. But it turned out to make it that little bit more fun in the end. So, just to run you through how this works. So this is going from start to finish, opening the application, finding a show, and then we'll shortly be entering card details. So found a show, Frisky and Manish, who are a pop parody group, checking to see if the tickets are available. There are tickets available, moving through. Have to sign in. Obviously we don't want people storing their details in the open, and this is sped up just a little bit. I really wish I could type that fast on a mobile phone. So go through, select a number of tickets. A lot of this would be cut out once the first transaction has been made and all the details of the user have been stored within the application itself. Sorry, I'm going to hide my card details now. And so we allow the user to save the card details. And we're just going to go through and enter the address information. So very much standard type of input that you would do for an online transaction, but it's not something that people want to do again and again on a mobile device. So did everything we could to make sure this only happened the first time. Of course, allowing users to delete it when they want to. So the next screen, this is what you would see normally. Here's your tickets. All the details are already there. And this is our one-tap purchase. So hit the button here, and off we go, processing the card payment. Doesn't take very long. This is how quickly it happened. And those are real tickets to a real show. Next step is to go find that collection point. It stores the tickets in your basket, adds them to your calendar. So we're just going to go into the area where the tickets are stored. There it is in the calendar. There's the tickets, and you can see the collection point of the University of Edinburgh. It's just 27 metres away at the top. And then next, turn up to the collection point, swipe your credit card, and off you go. So we had 3 of these collection points at strategic places around the city. Fortunately, most of the Fringe venues are actually grouped. So that was how it works. What was the impact? So we saw another increase in downloads, double again the downloads in 2010, and similar increase in sessions. In a survey that was performed afterwards, 7% of users used this as their main source of information on the Fringe. Those 7% could be 30,000 people who didn't use the programme. So that could be quite a lot of paper. But they're predominantly in the 15 to 44 age group bracket, which traditionally for the arts is a very hard group to reach. And the exciting numbers that blew all of our expectations is we saw nearly 20,000 tickets purchased through the mobile phone apps. We weren't expecting anything like that. It equated to nearly 2% of the entire Fringe ticket purchases in its first year, and that was tickets worth £250,000. So for the Fringe Society, they got their added value. We managed to create additional ticket sales. Sales and other channels for the Fringe were up as well, so it didn't seem to be any cannibalisation. Again, reaching the younger audiences and putting the Fringe in a position as an innovative festival to really capitalise on the continued growth of mobile, learning year on year to say, right, what's worked for us, what didn't work, what can we do to improve this and maybe move more of our business into mobile, and giving them a solid foundation to do that. And like I said before, reducing that reliance on the Fringe programme, which is one of the most costly endeavours they have to undertake, and hopefully reducing their environmental footprint. So thank you very much.